Hello, everybody. We're going live on YouTube as of now. I'm about to go live on Instagram. My name is Emmanuel Nuno Arambula. I'm coming from live from Texas on a podcast directly sent to the people listening live. If you're living, this is for you. This is for you, and I'm glad to met you today. Welcome. My name is Boris, and I'm from Russia. I just moved here from Texas, and you can tell that oh man, my accent's pretty crazy, right? Hold up. Let's go live on Instagram. Checking connection. Everything's juicy. Everything's ready for going to live podcast. Hello, people. Thank you for joining. I'll bring this cell phone a little closer. You know, if you got to multitask when you're on here. Oh, sorry. I showed my Russian accent. Hello, my name is Boris the Blade, and I'm coming for you live from Texas. We're about to do these things. Let's do it now. Bomb Russia. Bomb USA. We got to go. We got to live today. Bomb Russia. Bomb USA. We got to go. We got to live today.
Brain damage, lung disease, or
What
cancer.
the fuck?
So if you wouldn't let a cow drink it or eat it, why the heck would you inhale it? Vapes contain these
This is
toxic
bullshit.
chemicals and more.
I just got hacked. Why are you hacking me? Naughty, naughty. See, no one's tuning in. Giving you comedy gold here. Comedy gold. What we got, dude? You're about to go live on Facebook. If anyone has Facebook, go ahead and tune in. So I got the 4K channel kicking in the background. God damn. So you got angles everywhere. But that's if you want to really get out, you got to go all three platforms. All the platforms you can like tune in. Basically all platforms. Just go live on them. The only one I'm not live on is Twitter. So I got Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and fans only. And we're doing this, man. We're fucking doing this. Fuck this fucking angle. That's my father. Just kidding. So we're going live on Facebook already? Goddamn. Okay, you can see me? All right, cool. Hi, so welcome here, and we're about to fuck shit up, and we're a lot to get into, you know, lot to get into. You just go way back, go back, you know, go way back, and you can just tell there's a lot to get into, you know, and try and get these angles right. I want to get these angles right. I want to get the audio right. Have you like close to me. Yeah, let's do that. Fucking Instagram. How's Instagram? Bree, what's up? Love y'all. Genesis, tapping in. I promised myself I was going to start this podcast with a song. I want to entertain you guys. But I want to just like be avant-garde and fucking really meta and fuck shit up like that. Too much. And, you know, I'm bragging that I'm a creative genius. So I'm just going to go off the cuff. Like, get my guitar here. It was my old guitar. My girlfriend, when I was 17, gave me this guitar. A lot of people think it's a good guitar, but it's actually from Walmart. And got my chai latte. I need to slow it down. You know, slow it down. Take it easy. So we got audio coming from everywhere. I want to make sure everything's perfect. Last time I did this in sound check, I had to put the mic closer. It is what I do. Fucking hack everything. Everything's connected. I put the microphone in the guitar, and I put the audio in the remote control. And I got Exotic Birds on 4K going in the background because I like to party. And put this microphone over here, closer to the magic, where the magic's happening. I was gonna tune the guitar, but I was like, fuck it. Nirvana didn't tune their guitar. All right. It's straight out the cuff. Straight up improvisation. Look pretty soon tomorrow. I love monkey. I love monkey. I'm looking back to the forest where I came from. Where I live, where I dream, where I die, where I sing. I'm here, live, living everywhere. I'm singing. Oh, I'm singing. I believe that I found the reason and the meaning of living in the moment. In the moment. In the moment. Going on. If I can't even know. I can sing for the first time, live everywhere, and knowing the truth will be behind me. I see the light, I see the house with me. Oh, all the people on Instagram, you can hear the effects from the mic, but you want to check out the other live stream. Cool, that was very meditative, man. That was very, anything that's a creative, immersive experience that manufactures bliss in the body and in your central nervous system, your heart and your soul, like really fucks shit up. Woo! Hot mic. All right, I'm gonna stop with this mic. This one. How's everyone out there? If I'm not entertained, I'll keep on entertaining. I'll fucking live paint. But let's get weird for a minute. So a lot of stuff going on. A lot of stuff. A lot of topics. I'm not sure what the device is for this device, but we're gonna get there. You know, we're getting there. So let's start off with Joe Rogan. What's this motherfucker up to? Joe Rogan, I summon you. Let's see where they take this. Can I summon you? Fuck. Joe Rogan history origins. If you don't like that, give me another topic. Yeah, man. I was like, oh, I can talk about myself, but why not talk about myself vicariously through talking about Joe Rogan and fuck shit up. Okay. Oh, shit. All right. How's Facebook? Oh, it's empty as always. Fucking, it's so weird. Oh, there's one person watching. What's up? What's up? What's up? Hi, everybody on Instagram watching as well. So,
I'm back here right now backstage. I'll be interviewing the fighters as they come out of the octagon, and I'll also be. The only thing that I had going for me was that I was crazy, and that I'd been spending most of my high school years fighting. Okay? Yeah, that was Rogan. That's Mr. Joe Rogan. Get my ass. What's wrong with you? It's something bimbos, it's something based on for them. It's like they do need bimbos. They're also going to date every now and then because of low maintenance. I got talked into doing stand up by my friends from martial arts. For real? The girl was guarding the front door by herself. We're trying to say that women don't do everything. Exactly. Exactly what I'm saying. Yeah, when you start out doing a podcast, well, you turn downloads. Well, that's how it works. We all were there once. Yeah, I was there once. Dude, when we first did it, when Brian and I were first doing this podcast, and we were doing it on like Ustream, we would have 200 viewers. If I were to ask you how much you thought the Joe Rogan experience,
those of you on Instagram, let me know if you can hear
sponsorships, what kind of number might you throw out there as a ballpark figure? 500,000, 1 million, 2, 3, 5 million, I mean, even 10 million? Well, none of these numbers are even close. Try an estimate of $30 to $50 million in 2019 alone. On top of this, I'm sure
2019 alone
switched from YouTube to Spotify in September 2020. A deal worth an estimate of $100 million.
All right, let's pause that shit. So that was a good little clip of Joe Rogan. Cool thing about Joe Rogan is that he's been in it for a minute, man, for a hard minute, and it's a lot of part of like my life. I grew up on Joe Rogan before the whole podcast bullshit, before UFC as a commentator, when he was a comedian. I was very into comedy growing up, and UFC obviously is not. I was a fanatic of Joe Rogan. He wasn't really a household name or mainstream then. Even before comedy, he was in a couple of shows on TV that I liked. News Radio. News Radio is one of them. Very cynical, like dry pan, dry humor, sarcastic, like show. And before that, he was like a very famous black belt that would compete and worldwide. And before even like UFC was formulated in the early '90s, and put together by all these people, Joe Rogan was already bashed in the head like several times, and he couldn't really compete. But he was a badass. And within that, just give you a brief history is that he's trained a lot of people. A lot of people have trained him in all kinds of backgrounds, military, mixed martial arts, what have you. Private trainers, so millionaires, billionaires, and you can't just like write him off. That's why he's a force to be reckoned with. That's why. If you've not heard the controversy of Joe Rogan and stuff, it's kind of like, well, it's up to you if you want to not like engage with things that are very important, not only happen culturally but affects politics. Because one, as an activist for several years of my life, for 10 years plus, is the grassroots, like how you do with no fucking money or just like do the blood and labor, sweat and tears, is you impact culture, or you become immersed into culture, or you somehow become challenge yourself to rise and become a creative force involving your culture around you in any sense. But it starts with culture, man, and that's how we really change politics. That's how we change into a world, or evolve into the world that we want to live around in, or be a part of, or our habitat, our communities, our family. It starts with you, and then you can see the benefits and that right away when it kind of it's infectious, and then it teaches your family, and then you go from there. So let's go back to the documentary. I'm trying to hear myself talk. You know, I'm used to radio. I've tried it a couple of times in my life. Houston, uh, back in 2014, there was a large group of people that started local life Houston radio. Shout out Jordan and his homie, forgot his name, but they made it happen for a lot of people, and a lot of those people are still pillars of our community, our creative community today. Shout out Absalom from Midtown Mojo Manufacturers. He was on that radio. He had a radio station himself. My homeboy Michael is still painting. He's a fucking one of those genius artists that are trying to hold it down in downtown Houston, and he had a radio station with a friend of mine. I was helping out a friend that used to throw shows all around Montrose and around Houston, and I was helping him with his radio station. That's how I tried my voice, and I was like, damn, like that's one thing to master. Even that's why I'm someone that really respects. You respect your path on your levels of your chakras, your body, not to like talk about chakra. I can like talk about organs if you don't like the word chakra, because it's the same fucking thing. Your glands in your body. So right now I'm right here. I'm up to here with all this bullshit, and I want to vocalize it on my fucking throat chakra. And I've always resided in my heart chakra. Green is my color, and then a lot of people know I kind of use it as a mechanism or as a tool to broaden my ego. And like we can go into this real quick, and then I'll go back to Joe Rogan. But the like I love green, right? The yellow is a tool, like just like our egos are a tool. And where I compare it, when I talked about yellow, and I always talk about ego, and I always talk about solar plexus in our body. It all corresponds to the solar plexus and around those organs and glands in your body that have resonance to these waves of energy. Yellow is a wave, is a live wave. If you like a sunflower, you have to appreciate that wave plate of a sunflower, which is yellow, that color. Um, a lot of the theory art that I did was going down to like balancing out yellow as a construct of duality and itself, because when we think about yellow, we think about joyness and flowers and the sun, but also yellow can of course correspond to like toxicity and caution and poison, all that bullshit. Yellow signs and all over we go. So we can get to those places in our consciousness, respecting our own path in life, respecting the process of age in our biological body, um, to because we're strong beings, man, of fucking soul, mind. I'm sorry, soul and spirit. And some of them, especially people on the spectrum, have those strong. Uh, and it takes a while to get accustomed to this fucking flesh meat of a body bag. We have to be patient. And a lot of people out there want to modify their bodies right away, and that's fine, man. Like at the end of the day, it's fucking do with it like what you will. It's a form of revolution, Like we talk a lot of mess about transgender people like fucking up the shit or like mixing it up, but what's the difference between that and a fucking Tibetan monk setting himself on fire? Not much of a difference. And so, ending this, I used yellow as a wavelength to tap into, to cater to ego, to allow me to have a healthier side of what some people might experience as narcissism, or building up to megalomania, something like it's a mechanism of survival. Like we, especially now these times we're living in, a lot of people are afraid. Like if people get pressured and pushed like a diamond in the rough until they become and shine because they had enough of it. Like, boom! This like you want a like real ass niggas here now. You know what I'm saying? Like a fucking diamond that's been really pressured, and now you got a big yellow sun shining. Um, and so going back to Joe Rogan, you know, like using your voice, you know, is probably in that means of like being there spiritually that you need to exert or exercise catharsis. And a lot of what catharsis is not just is your voice. In dynamic meditation, I'm going to this quote. Once I go into this quote, I'll go back to the video and dynamic meditation that we do with Osho. And this Osho, my homeboy in the back of me. Shout out to Osho. And he created all forms of meditation, understanding his own culture and history of tantra studies of yogi meditations, but also from the intellectual side because he was a professor for fucking a ton of years. And he studied this shit. He knew what he was talking about. He read all the fucking master's books, all the books, all the badass books y'all hipsters fucking talk about. He fucking boom, download that shit. So here's what it is, motherfucker. And I am here not so much because of what he brought to the table, is because it's age and a path I respected. That I myself read those fucking books, and I'm at an age where like, okay, I'm in the same page as this motherfucker here, this nigga, and he's my nigga, and I'm pretty sure like. And also, if y'all getting sweating about me saying nigga, I'm a real ass nigga from North Central Houston, from shout out Las Mitas from South Texas. I'm from fucking Las Mitas, que pinche pedo, la verga, bro. You don't know me like that. Fucking real ass person in the flesh, live. Y'all can't do this. Y'all haven't done it. Y'all haven't exercised those things. Go pump them out, squeeze it, pump your body a little bit, and then fucking talk to me. Let's say this quote right here because it's death. I'm killing myself constantly. As once I fucking put play live here, I've been constantly killing myself. So the quote here, I have a bunch of these that we blew up, and he's son of a bitch. And the quote says, "Death is the most Death is the most misunderstood phenomenon. People have thought of death as the end of life. That is the first basic misunderstanding." So if you shatter your ego, like death ego, a lot of people talk about that. A lot of positive shit comes out of dismantling your death ego, and it gets you to the power to do things and rebuild yourself. Creation, destruction. A lot of our favorite gods are not only gods of creation but destruction at the same time. They embody the duality, and if you don't get that, then have fun residing in ignorant bliss in your pain body of nostalgia, just looping it up. Oh, I know how to make myself feel good. Was the guy in the podcast said earlier? Yeah, weird word for masturbation. This fucking guy, what did he say? He said, diddling yourself. Diddling. What are you diddling yourself? I like masturbate. I was meditating on masturbation the other day, like on the word masturbation, and it's master bait, right? So what's the root word of bait? You know, like to go to bait, to fish. So what I'm getting with all this shit is that a lot of the tantra intentions of meditating is that you channel states of bliss, states of raw energies pumping through your body, just as if you would masturbating, and like just like a lot of catharsis too. Like you're emulating fucking, and a lot of tantric meditations emulating fucking, and like yeah, that was just like raw sex. Like I don't know how else to describe it, but to each their own. They're all different. Um, And then you have a lot of tension. You can like manifest shit during that stuff, especially if you don't fucking come. You know, you're just masturbating maybe, and then so you're baiting like a master. You can bait, like put all the intention that whatever you want in the world as you're masturbating, and right before you're going about the climax, don't, and just blow it out like a candle, blow out that heat, and then let's see if you baited what you've mastered, or you mastered what you baited. Wow, that was a weird turn into this podcast. Okay, so let's get back to the video. I think I lost it. Oh, there it is. This commercial. Joe Rogan.
How could Joe Rogan possibly get to this point? How could Joe Rogan possibly go from an average guy working a drudgerous construction job when I had to be up at 7 to go to my construction job? To the most powerful interviewer who has ever lived. Okay, so you're getting 1 billion downloads a year. Something like that. So I could ask you, what do you make of that? Like, are you the most powerful interviewer on the planet? Or are you the most powerful interviewer that the planet has ever seen? Because, who has 1 billion of anything? No one. It's safe to say that over his experience, shall we say, Joe Rogan has certainly picked up a few irreplaceable tricks along the way.
I mean, who else is a UFC fighter and a commentator and a podcaster and a comedian and, you know, interested in all these things and knowing all these people? Can't replace you.
Ladies and gentlemen, join me as we cover the story of Joe Rogan and the Joe Rogan experience.
What up? I got to put some questions out there on Facebook. If y'all lazy as motherfuckers want to answer my questions on
Joe Rogan is far from famous at this point in time. In fact, Joe Rogan is simply a 16-year-old high school kid full of potential and ready to take on the world. His stepfather, an architect in the area, had the ability to provide Joe with some construction work given his position at the time. When I was a kid, my dad was an architect, and so I worked on a lot of construction sites. However, after working in construction for a period of time, Joe decided that he didn't really enjoy the work and decided that a normal job just wasn't really for him. I didn't feel like I had I knew one thing. I couldn't work like a regular job. Like I had to figure out something else. Because like there's the idea of, it was literally the idea of being in an office was like torture. At the same time, Joe had already been training in various different martial arts and was initially considering martial arts as a career alternative to the construction jobs that he was working at the time. I could not exist in a regular job. I didn't have it. Whatever it was. It's a thing. You know, when you know you don't have it, it's kind of scary. Like, oh no, I'm not going to have a straight life. Joe had been doing martial arts since the age of 14. He began with karate and wrestling as a result of an altercation with another peer in school. One of the reasons why I got into wrestling, this kid, like we had this confrontation in the locker room, but I do remember him getting me in the headlock, throwing me on the ground, and then leaning like he was going to punch me in the face, but deciding not to. And I didn't know what to do. At the age of 19, after training for 5 years, Joe Rogan entered the US Open Championship Taekwondo tournament as a lightweight, of which he was the winner. That was a Taekwondo tournament. I was 19. And then following this, Joe became the Massachusetts full contact state champion for 4 consecutive years. I won the Massachusetts State Championship 4 years in a row. Also becoming a Taekwondo instructor given his skill level. However, Joe didn't really know if this is what he wanted to do over the long run. Joe began to lose faith in Taekwondo, so he began to dabble in boxing and kickboxing as a better long-term alternative. That's when I was starting to box and kickbox, and I was losing faith in Taekwondo. I was realizing that I had a distorted perception of what I could do. However, after only 3 amateur kickboxing matches, Joe decided to stop kickboxing, stating firstly that he had a distorted view of what he could achieve following his Taekwondo success, and secondly that he feared being hit in the head, potentially causing a permanent injury. Joe Rogan was once again without a clear path of what he wanted to do with himself.
Good ones are good to date every now and then because they're low maintenance, right?
All right, and pause it where he starts doing comedy. So, as you can see, he had extensive martial arts background. And I just wanted to highlight why he goes more into why he started martial arts in the first place. And a lot of his friends and close friends and contemporaries are also martial artists. And also Batista, like I saw another show, sort of a show with Batista, the actor. He opened up. He was a entertainer, wrestler. He started learning martial arts when he was trying to defend himself at school, bullies and stuff like that. But also like he had a stepdad and his, like people tend to like want to rise up to the occasion of like defending yourself to the fullest degree out there when you're trying to defend yourself from people that are trying to test you all the time, and that's too strong and go to those levels. But let's go ahead and as he gets into comedy.
If you date smart women, they ask tough questions. You got to give them real answers, right? Bimbos answer
Really
easy questions. You tell them anything. Right? What are you thinking about? Corn.
So that's Joe Rogan, like doing comedy for one of the first times, and he's from like the New Jersey area, like New York. That's his scene. Those comics are more like darker, making fun of each other, making fun of doing crowd work, making fun of crowds, like old Italian and Italian Jewish like comedians too that just did like crowd work back in like in the Vegas days, and that's where that comes from, which a lot of self-criticism and criticism in general. And it's some of my favorite type of comedy. I like a lot of stuff that came out from the Chicago area. I like a lot of Texas comics. We have our own little twang here. Southern comics, especially Black and African comics from the South. I like a lot of comedy from the well formulated and thought out in the Hollywood, California area, which eventually he did move to, and that's how he broke out over there. So comedy is very vital. Just to like, if you're tuning in right now, and if I can drop some fucking little shit, why comedy is so vital to our society and civilization in general is that it exercises the free will of language and articulating yourself and expelling stuff that possesses you right in the now. Like there's nothing like people like spelling stuff like talking, and it's like, oh, well, I heard this today, so it made me think this, so let me regurgitate it. Or the grand mechanism of comedy as a whole, coming from the history of like jesters and court jesters and people that had amazing power to gain the king's ear by whispering or in forms of comedy, telling the king what he should do or how he should think or what he should consider. And to quote Oscar Wilde, a famous poet, is like, if you want to tell someone the truth, make them laugh or they'll kill you. Which goes back to death. So and this guy is Italian, very broy type motherfucker. He wants to kill himself. That's why he's up there, man. Like, self-critic. You're vulnerable. You want everything that's possessing you to die, and you want to just see if it's what it's about. So you speak it. So a lot of Dave Chappelle is his philosophy. A lot of comedy is philosophy in its genuine sense. And when I say genuine, is that when it's not divisive. When you're just saying, "Hey, I heard this," or "This is happening in our society," blah, because that's what it was, blah. Blah to me and blah back to y'all and blah 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 until it goes to ha ha ha. It could be as simple as that. Or no, that's not simple. That's like complex. That's real comedy. What's simple is fart jokes and dick jokes and wee penis jokes, which is most of the comedy that most average people listen to or hear. And these are the famous comedy. Point like Fluffy, for example. Fluffy is a household name. He doesn't swear as much. There's some even Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart, most famous comedian right now, but he's not on par with Dave Chappelle because the dynamics of what I'm talking about are totally different. You got one guy that wants to climb Hollywood, be the richest black man American comedy actor, which he is, and it's a very slippery slope. And guess who I'm talking about? Not Dave Chappelle, Kevin Hart. He plays it safe, and he does like household comedy, fork jokes, bit jokes, family jokes, traffic jokes. That anything can be considered comedy. It doesn't mean that's a standard comedy just because it's wholesome, just because it's a reflection of the simple absurdities of life. Comedy could be also uh, uh, a weapon of mass destruction that is just there for show. It's not real, but like it's because they're testing their freedom of speech and what they can do. Because like it's a lot like exercising your white privilege or your privilege in general. If you come from a privileged family, and the privilege is that we live in a fucking first world country, and we should be doing that because guess what? Third world countries, you can't do that. You can't say not even any form of comedy, or you get killed in prison. Like consider this, and it kind of boggles my mind that a lot of people don't give a fuck about comedy, and they love laughing. They like the idea of comedy. They like the idea of watching a comedy movie or going to a comedy show, but they never take in consideration what they're experiencing as a whole. Like, like I've always wanted to be a comedian. It's a discipline in itself, and that's tethers to performance, and it's a lot up my alley. I am going to do it, and I will do it. Just light here, it's like having my face yellow. So, comedy has a special place in my heart. Like my father and I, we used to watch comedy specials all the time, and live comedy too. That's probably now that I shared with my father as a bond, but as a bond of intelligent people, or people are working themselves up to be intelligent, to experience a phenomenon that happens in our culture, and then want to pursue that and understand it to its fullest sense. Like, why is there different forms? Why are some comedians talking about bits and real shit in life? And that's amazing that they can make people laugh about that. And it's interesting that they have them might get killed or have gotten killed. Lenny Bruce is a very famous American comedian that got really put it down for and paved the way for a lot of other comedians, and he almost got attacked by the American government. So we should bring that back and understand it that way. Yeah, cool. Back to the video.
Age 21 also happened to be the same year where Joe Rogan began to pursue a new gig that would eventually go on to become his main pathway. Everything's good someday. Everything's better. It's not getting better. Nothing gets better. You know why? Because dumb people are outbreeding smart people 20 to 1. Joe stated that when he and his martial arts buddies would go to various different tournaments, he would make jokes and say stupid things to try and cut the Greek fight tension.
We would go to compete, or we would be about to spar, and I would be the guy who would make everybody laugh. Because everybody was so nervous, because it was scary.
The guys he did martial arts with then convinced him to try stand-up comedy, assuming he'd be good at given his comedic personality. So on the 27th of August 1988, Joe Rogan went on stage to perform his first comedy set.
Oh, I'm so terrified. It was in Boston, a place called Stitches.
It was still there.
August 27, 1988. No,
You know the day?
yeah, for sure.
You made me cry. That's awesome. Why do you remember that?
I don't know, I always remembered it.
Joe recalls the jokes being so awful that barely anybody laughed at his whole 4-minute first set. A humbling reality check reminding us that sometimes you have to look like an idiot before you can master a skill. However, that initial embarrassment was not enough to stop him. Joe realized that he loved comedy so much that he came to a bit of a crossroads. He was still doing martial arts at the time, but was really enjoying comedy too.
And so when I was getting into really into kickboxing, was 20 into 21. And at the same time, I was thinking about doing stand-up. Because I was already doing comedy at the time, and I was starting to realize, I got to pick one of the other.
Yeah, he had to pick one.
That American flag triggered me. This is one thing is that a lot of people think he's far right for some reason, just because the American flag in the background or the gun talk. He hangs out with real men of all forms. that all disciplines, whether it be martial arts or people that survivalists, tactic survivalists, um, and a lot of people who train a lot of people, but he is a trainer. When you're a trainer, you meet other trainers and say, what do you train people to do? And a lot of, if you're a trainer, you also have a form of rhetoric or way of speaking, engaging, and connecting with people. You know, so you know he gets into that role. He's very ambiguous in who he is in person. A lot of what his podcast is like sticking to the subject at hand, and not he's very mindful in that way where it's not all about him, but it's about taking in information. So one thing that highlighted is that what was phenomenal about podcasting that came up, and it was not Hollywood. You go on there and you're engaging with people like I'm engaging with y'all, non-filtered, live, in the cut, no editing. And people don't appreciate this. They rather watch TV than watch like me right now. But then again, they won't have. I feel like I'm very misunderstood, but I make it my superpower to be misunderstood. And I don't. I call it like calculated chaos. We all know chaos in its form, but when you use it to as a, if you know like people are going to create confusion in itself because they choose to willfully misunderstand you as a whole, then you can flip it and turn it back right on it, create like levels, and then it becomes meta. So you want to get meta, and then I've been blessed with a lot of people that I respect, contemporaries, friends that I've made friends, like hardcore friends, art friends, that because they understood what I was doing or how I was engaging, and it's a very intelligent way to engage, and I'm protecting myself too, man. Like, I'm not gonna just give away everything, because I was like, at the caliber of artist I am, it's like I formulate and create. Not the intention or what fuels me is not money. A lot of my, a lot of contemporaries, a lot of artists I see, what fuels them is money. It's like, I'm gonna paint this now because it's gonna make me this much, and I know this is gonna sell. So this, and I'm gonna make sure it's art. So I'm gonna make sure that the lines are all like awesome and shit. So let's go back to the documentary at hand. It's a very short documentary, but I like how it's 10 minutes because it just cuts down to important clips and factors of his life where I can intervene and like tell like my engagement with him. Again, like I have a long history with this man, and I feel like I understand him. He looks like my dad, for fuck's sake. And if I were to shave my beard, I might get some Joe Rogan shit going on too. Because I've grown with him. I don't see him as a mentor. A lot of because I've seen him like grow as I'm growing too. Like I knew he was not that keen of survivalist tactics and hunting. So I've literally saw him learning how to hunt as I'm learning how to do, and like looking it up as I'm doing, and other things in that nature. Like him learning about. What's going on in the world of like this cultural world we're living in, the intellectual dark web, all these little factors that factor into a cultural revolution. He's formulating understanding because he's constantly interviewing, engaging with people on a very real and authentic level. And people tend to forget what is authentic relating to people, Just meditate on that, authentic relating, because that was a form of like I would call it meditation, but a lot of people were practicing this. We'll call it like exercise in a game, and it's called authentic relating. And a lot of people like it would be like karaoke. Like, all this meet up so we can authentic relate, and that was pretty interesting. And this was going back before the Me Too movement and the dawning of the Me Too movement. And it was a mechanism they created themselves so we can understand who's who in our society, in our circles, our social circles. I thought that was very interesting when that happened. It's led on by academic art intellectuals and BDSM culture. which is goes hand in hand with the dawning of the Me Too movement. We can get more into that later, but there's correlations there. Going back to the video.
On the other. And since comedy seemed to have better long-term prospects, Joe decided that doing comedy was his best option. By 1990, 2 years after beginning comedy, Joe was actually a full-time comedian in New York City. Joe's comedy style was mainly blue comedy. Comedy style involving usually indecent and profane references, landing in multiple gigs at bachelor parties and even strip clubs. After 6 years of comedy between 1988 and 1994, Joe Rogan relocated to Los Angeles, which is where things really started to pick up in his work life. And after 6 years of perfecting his craft, Joe was extremely skilled at comedy, which landed him his first role on national television with a show on MTV called Hard Hour Comedy Hour.
I've never seen this show.
He then used this experience on television to land an acting role in his first ever TV show titled Hardball.
I've never seen
There
that
was a lot of
show.
baseball
Canceled
team.
very
It's not a baseball team. And I was the guy who was always causing trouble and wrecking his car and going crazy. That was me. I looked like a baby. It's so weird.
Joe then once again used that experience to land a role in the more notable TV show News Radio, appearing in
News
96
Radio.
out of 97 episodes before the show was eventually cancelled in 1999.
You see any good movies
It
lately?
was 1999.
Me, I don't go to movies. I don't like movies. Most movies suck. Someone says, hey, Joe, you want to go to a movie? What did I say? Say, I don't like movies. I don't go to movies. Most movies suck.
And then on top of all of this, Joe also became a regular at a comedy store in LA in 1997, an experience that he's discussed extensively since. So it's safe to say that Joe Rogan well and truly had his hands filled by this point. We don't really think of Joe Rogan as an actor, but that's what his main gig was at this point, acting in comedy. But Joe explained that he didn't want to be an actor forever. He simply saw acting as a way to pay the bills while working on his true creative passion, comedy. However, by the late 90s, an issue started to arise for Joe Rogan. The acting was drying up a bit, resulting in a need for an alternative endeavor to cover the bills.
You know what boxing is? Well, boxing is a very limited form of fighting. It's kind of a silly agreement. Say, like, we hate each other, we're going to fight, we're going to duke it out man to man, but we're only going to use our hands. That's it. What ultimate fighting is, it's the actual sport of fighting. It encompasses all aspects of fighting.
At the same time that the acting gigs were starting to dry up, Joe Rogan began to get more interested in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a fighting style that was being popularized by Royce Gracie, who was a fighter on the relatively new Ultimate Fighting Championship, or UFC for short.
8 of the deadliest fighters in the world will meet in a no-holds-barred combat to determine who is the Ultimate Fighting Champion.
Joe's manager at the time, Jeff Sussman, knew the organizer for the UFC, which provided the opportunity for Joe Rogan to become a post-fight interviewer.
I got a call from my manager, and it was essentially saying, all right, there's this thing that you got an offer for it. I'm sure you're not going to want to do this. But
Joe accepted the offer, which was followed by Joe Rogan's first appearance on the UFC in February 1997.
Let's go up to Joe Rogan. Joe, I'm here live with Victor. Congratulations, Victor. Unbelievable victory.
However, after only 2 years, Joe Rogan quit, stating that he just wanted to watch people fight and drink. Also mentioning that it didn't pay enough compared to what he could be earning while doing comedy.
I actually had to quit because it was costing me money. Because, like, if I would go do a UFC, I don't remember how much I made. It wasn't that much to do the interview stuff. But then if I could do a comedy gig, I could make, like, $2,000 for a weekend. Right. So I was like, what am I doing now? When I can make $2,000? Like, what am I doing? I'm making, like, 1 instead of 2. So it was just costing me money.
However, Joe then got back into doing the commentating after the UFC president offered him and his buddies free prime event tickets in exchange for the work. After commentating on 15 different matches for free, Joe accepted pay for the job and was officially a UFC commentator again.
It's a much more exciting sport than any of the other combat sports that are out there right now. And that's why it's here, and that's why it's the fastest growing sport in the world.
A role that he would continue to the early 2000s, at which point Joe decided to pick up another acting job that would boost his notoriety tremendously.
Here, back here.
has been known for dreaming up some of the most outrageous and insane stunts you could possibly imagine.
Joe Rogan then began hosting the show Fear Factor in 2001, an absolutely preposterous show that would force contestants to face severe challenges in exchange for cash prizes.
It was a preposterous show, like, from the jump, and I always thought it was going to be canceled. And it was a giant hit. It was like giant hit.
Huge.
And they were, like, immediately it was a hit. I was like, this is so stupid. The show is so stupid.
And Joe originally explained he got the main role in the show because he treated the show like a joke, thinking that all he could possibly get out of it would be new material for his jokes.
this is the most insane idea for a television show I've ever heard. This is going to be canceled immediately, and I'm going to have all this material about. Remember when I used to host Fear Factor?
The show featured all sorts of different challenges, such as eating different insects,
Check 1, 2.
crazy car stunts, and even the challenge of fighting Joe Rogan himself.
He got in Joe's face.
They got too close to Joe.
Oh my God.
And then all of a sudden they start going. And they had told me about him before he did the show. They're like, this guy's a serious hothead. We was thinking about not having him on the show at all. But we thought it'd be good drama, just but be careful.
However, in the second last season, around late 2004, Joe was getting pretty tired of making the show, stating that the repetitiveness of the show was starting to get monotonous.
When I was on like season 5 of Fear Factor, I remember thinking, I don't know how much longer I can do this.
What was it about it? It was just too much repetitive.
It was the same thing over and over again. We did 148 episodes.
Right.
The show was then cancelled only one season later in 2006 due to a highly inappropriate stunt performed in one of the episodes. But this wasn't such a bad thing for Joe. He had starred in 148 episodes, boosting his notoriety tremendously, and he had no liability to continue making the show, giving him more time to invest in his comedy sets. On top of this, it gave Joe enough money to never...
Just pause it there to get back here. So one thing I've kind of like overheard throughout listening to podcasts and Joe podcast is when he did Fear Factor, this a lot of these concepts came from a lot of them were ridiculous, right? Like ridiculous stunts, but a lot of them were like military stunts. A lot of them were like endurance practices, endurance exercises, social experiments. To give you one example, there's one where they had them climb really high into a beam, right? And then they were going to get a bungee jump off of this beam. And then as they're jumping off of the beam, there's a kind of like a traffic light, like green, yellow, red. And within those symbols, within those little light circles, there are different symbols, right, shapes. And then they would test their visual visual cue of like them paying attention to the constant changing of the lights. Not only that, but the figures inside the lights as they're experiencing an adrenaline rush of jumping off and being like bungee jumping off this beam here. And they did that experiment with the special forces, and the whole thing was that like your perception would seem like it was slowing down time, but what it was really doing is giving you time to analyze everything, because you push yourself to that limit where you are like, everyone has the power to just like be a little superhero. There's stories of mothers picking up like cars or like doing awesome stuff to save the children, and that's a mother's intuition and a lot of stuff like that. It's very interesting, and the only reason I bring that up is because I think Joe Rogan does have ties to like as far as like people like watching his back, like having his back on because a lot of these people in Hollywood are groomed. He's not groomed necessarily. He's like he just rolls with the right people, and these people eventually are the ones that survived all the crazy shit that happened in Hollywood. A lot of people got Me Too'd, and all the predators were sexual predators and rapists were getting exposed in Hollywood. And he's like he's someone that hold it down real, like was like that's why he never liked Hollywood. He didn't like the Hollywood acting and movie stuff. And he stayed to his passion of mixed martial arts and podcasting and comedy. And and so like podcasting was just technology evolving, and him being able to tap into something that he saw his counterparts and his contemporaries tapping into. And then this is another interesting thing about this stuff here. Think about all the people that kind of like were the founders, not founders, but people that started podcasting first. And this is exercising privilege, because who remembers internet back then? You know, like dial-up and all that stuff. The internet was slow. It was very slow. So you would have to have like mad money to afford fast internet back then. Not more so over to go live on the computer back then. And the broadband was just sketch as fuck. And so he did it as like a fool's journey of, I'm just gonna press record, see what happens. Now he's the most paid podcaster. He sold all his podcasting. He didn't sell to him, but he has like a different agreement with Spotify, and he made millions, right? So he's a force to be reckoned with. And I don't agree with a lot of people trying to cancel anyone's voice in particular. Like I'm someone that came from a very real background, and I respect. There's something to learn from everyone in life, Like I'm not someone that's about to discredit someone or not listen to someone class difference or a cultural difference, So going back to this, let's go back to the video.
Not have to worry about finances ever again. A factor that would go on to help him in his later endeavors. It gave me the ability to not worry about like having money in the bank. Because I don't have like extravagant tastes. I'm not too ridiculous with money, but I like feeling like I don't have to worry. Like as soon as you don't have to worry about it, okay, good. Don't think about that anymore. Now think about other things. So it really helped me out.
And since he was now so famous from Fear Factor, the turnout to his comedy shows was significantly increased comparative to the early days. On top of all of this, Joe stated that focusing on television made him feel lazy and uninspired to write new material for his comedy acts. For this reason, from 2005 to 2009, Joe retired from acting to diligently focus on producing comedy while continuing UFC commentary as a side gig. Joe also hired 2 full-time cameramen with the money he had earned from Fear Factor, ultimately resulting in various different comedy and random multimedia endeavors between 2005 and 2009.
The devil made me do it, ladies and gentlemen. I apologize for my evil. That was a very late comedian from New Jersey.
However, it was in 2009 that Joe Rogan would begin a new endeavor that would propel his name into absolute stardom, essentially turning the name Joe Rogan from that UFC commentator and comedian to essentially a household name.
All right.
The Choctaw Culture is now open in
Choctaw
Grant,
Culture
Oklahoma. A
It's right here
living,
in
breathing
Oklahoma.
experience.
It's not a casino.
More information at ChoctawCulturalCenter.com.
I'll go visit that. It's very important. That's in Oklahoma for Native Americans and the reservations. This is why I love living in North Texas. So close to Arizona, one of the most beautiful states. It's because we're Native American. People indigenous to this land, holding it down. Visit the Choctaw Cultural Center.
Broadcasting live. This is my office.
So that's me now, man. That's his first episode of podcasting.
AKA Red Band.
Red Band. Red Band was the first guy to help him out. Now he's doing awesome shit.
December 24th, 2009.
He just popped up there, man. Fucking that guy that just popped out, he was his camera man / mainly he did the podcasting, the internet and audio and all that stuff. And that was one of his first friends, Red Band. And now Red Band, for the past year and a half, has been holding down in Austin, doing the most live streamed viewing podcasts, live shows, live comedy shows in the United States, recorded in Vulcan Event Center in Austin, Texas. He's doing that with Tony Hinchcliffe, another comedian that's Hinchcliffe's passion project. Hinchcliffe, the reason why people don't because the comedy world is a little small circle, right? Like if you either you love comedy, or you don't, and then you're super nerd of comedy, you would know like how it works, right? There's certain comedians comedians that are just like famous amongst the comedian circles because they're the ones that do all the work. A lot of like rappers and hip hop rappers, they have ghostwriters, and other comedians are not as successful and famous write for those comedians, and that's Tony Hinchcliffe. Now he's like very successful, and he was one of the main writers for the past several years, and now he's risen to the occasion of creating this podcast going on 3 years strong for all over the United States, allowing people to do 1 minute of comedy and just putting it out there to the world to see it. So there's a big network of people, and all they have to do is just not fucking kill themselves. That's all a comedian has to do. Not kill themselves. And if they would know any better, the ones that killed themselves, they realize that what they're doing on stage is practically killing themselves. So that's what's beautiful about it. That's what's beautiful about it. And you know, every time a comedian dies, like I take it to heart, you know, and it only fuels me to go out there and try to do comedy myself, man. So yeah, that was. If you're ever in Austin, check out Kill Tony at Vulcan venue in Austin. I'll be there soon, hopefully.
The very first episode of the Joe Rogan podcast live stream type thing begins on the website Ustream. The podcast began because Joe was forced to move with his wife from Colorado back to LA, a move that he didn't want to make considering he felt as though he had finally escaped the madness of Hollywood life.
We had to move from Colorado back to LA, and I was bummed out. I was like, I thought I escaped. I thought I got out of LA. I was living in the mountains. I was like, this is what I want. I want to be in nature. I was like, I don't want to be back in this in hellhole. Like, all right, let's do something. And so we started doing podcasts.
The very first episode of the show was promoted on JoeRogan.net, giving it enough exposure to gain 200 concurrent viewers on the first stream.
When Brian and I were first doing this podcast, we were doing it on like Ustream. We would have 200 viewers.
Ryan Redband, the first guest on the show, had been producing comedy and film content with Joe dating back to 2003. The idea for the podcast was that it would be a lot like the previously produced multimedia.
What up, Facebook? Shout out Facebook.
Where they could gauge the reactions via chat and Twitter. The initial idea was also that it would be exclusively Brian Redband and Joe Rogan talking about various topics. But after only 2 episodes, they realized that there's only so much they could talk about and decided to bring in comedian Ari Shafir as the first ever guest on episode 3. From this point, Joe decided that the goal of the podcast was to talk to people that he simply liked talking to.
I try to talk to people like yourself that I really enjoy talking to.
And since most of his friends at the time were actors, comedians, and individuals from the martial arts scene, the first guests on the podcast were people like Eddie Bravo,
who have been calling for young Eddie Bravo to be on the Joe Rogan podcast. He's here, ladies and gentlemen. There he is, Eddie Bravo.
Joey Diaz,
Joe Diaz, in the motherfucking house. One of the funniest human beings I've ever met in my life. I've known Joey for about a decade.
And Duncan Trussell.
I'm here with Duncan Trussell, ladies and gentlemen. Duncan Trussell has joined the podcast.
As the podcast.
They mentioned Duncan Trussell. He's on record to be the first podcaster. And Duncan had a show called The Midnight Gospel. Now you can see on Netflix, and it's like a weird remix of it, and it's like animation of all the people, weird people he interviewed. The Midnight Gospel was the first podcast in the United States. Probably not the very first, but like the very first to like just like nonstop. And then he became friends with Joe Rogan. He talked about a lot of stuff like psychedelics, you know, interviewing a lot of interesting weirdos, people, and like you know, like UFO people, all types of other shit you can think of. And you know, so let's go back into this. Just wanted to mention Dustin. Check the gospel.
Once began to gain more and more traction, Joe realized that the show needed a more official name. For the first 8 months of the podcast, the show didn't have a name. It was just the Joe Rogan Podcast. However, in August 2010, the podcast was officially named the Joe Rogan Experience, which was a tribute to the Jimi Hendrix Experience, which explains the Jimi Hendrix studio mugshots in the background of many of the episodes.
But the actual image is from, it's one of the Jimi Hendrix Experience, which is where I stole the name for this podcast.
At the same point, the podcast really started to blow up and pop.
Pause it again, because that's an interesting reference. Like, I've always thought as Jimi Hendrix as one of the first guitarists to like really fuck shit up and give people an understanding of electric instruments, of alchemy, precious metals, and magnetism, like electricity, pouring out and being manipulated by a man right in front of you, and like literal fire. And that's why he set the shit on fire, Jimi Hendrix famously. It's like, look, this thing doesn't just mesmerize people because you master it and you play like 4/4 chords and basic chord progressions, and and like all that bullshit. Like it also fucking mesmerizes people because it's a fucking it's magic, it's sorcery in itself. It's alchemic, like bursts of like fucking chaos, and you can like you're bending space and time off of this instrument in itself, a piece of long wood. So that's an experience, a psychedelic experience, and that's I was saying about the other guy, Justin. His podcast was about psychedelics, and then now you got Joe Rogan understanding those complexities, or not understanding them. A lot of things come like in the back of your head, you know, like it takes a while to formulate them. Serendipitous, I guess you can say.
Larry, Joe realized that the growth of the podcast provided the opportunity to have more notable guests on the show, resulting in the appearance of individuals like Tim Ferriss.
Tim Ferriss is here, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And Sam Harris.
Sam Harris, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining me, man. This is really cool.
Proving that the podcast worked with more than just comedians, actors, and fighters. The growth of the podcast then became even.
I'm trying to get that this guy's biased a little bit. Whoever made this fucking video, because like he's just highlighting all the like very all the guests that's very controversial of like the modern day politics we do it now, like Sam Harris. Go on record, man. I've never been an atheist, so like I've never really jived with Sam Harris. Like to be an atheist, that's just very cowardly and small mind. You know, atheist. You might as well just not say anything. Just shut the fuck up, sit down, and learn from the G's. All right, back to the video.
Stronger, so much so that by around episode 300 in January 2013, Joe Rogan created the powerful JRO YouTube channel with the intention of reaching a wider audience. At this point, there were very few other YouTube channels doing long-form podcasts on YouTube, so to post such lengthy videos on YouTube almost seemed bizarre to the audience. However, Joe did it regardless, considering it was free. As soon as the YouTube channel was created, it began to explode, gaining 100,000 subscribers in the first year and 150,000 in the second year, totaling 250,000 by early 2015. And as the channel grew, so did the notoriety of the guests. Neil deGrasse Tyson, Vsauce, Kid Cudi, Joe Rogan was beginning to establish himself as a guy who could get famous individuals on the show that the audience wanted to listen to. The trade-off was pretty simple, really. The notable or famous individual would spend a few hours of their time, Joe got his episode, and the individual got free exposure. The podcast then began to be seen as a revolutionary way for people to find out information on someone they might admire, as well as the ability to just observe whoever they might truly be in the most authentic possible conversation. Previously, the only real way that you could find out info on these celebrities were edited interviews or high-pressure paparazzi situations. The podcast really deconstructed that and promoted celebrities being who they really were without their fame, just regular people. For this reason, Joe went from interviewing comedians, actors, and fighters to high-profile scientists, Hollywood movie stars, and billionaires in a matter of a few short years. The Joe Rogan Experience grew so much that it was moved from his home in LA to the now private studio in Huntington Hills, Los Angeles. The studio that we now see with the notorious brick wall and red curtain backdrop.
Jamie, you love that TV? Are you in love with this?
Then in mid-2017, when the Joe Rogan Experience was at 1.5 million subscribers, the podcast hit 1,000 episodes.
We're live, ladies and gentlemen. 1,000 episodes.
At which point Joe uploaded a video going over many of the milestones that have been achieved along the way, ultimately showcasing how far things have come.
This is the 100th episode, 200 episodes ago, by the way, folks. And this is our 300th episode.
And then since then, not much has changed really, besides the notoriety of the guests and the production value. The Joe Rogan Experience continues to churn out episodes with many people who all think a little bit differently, which has kept the show extremely fresh over time. Some of the most notable guests to date are individuals such as Elon Musk, Dr. Phil, Jordan Peterson, Steve-O. I mean, the list really just goes on. More recently, Joe Rogan announced that he would be moving the podcast to Spotify, a deal worth an estimated $100 million.
I have an announcement. The podcast is moving to Spotify.
From September 2020, the Joe Rogan Experience will be exclusive to Spotify. The show will continue to be posted in full on YouTube until December 2020. However, afterwards will be discontinued from the platform. The clips will still be posted on YouTube. However, for the full show, you'll need to be on Spotify from
Bloody
December
hell.
2020.
Spotify came along and said, we'll give you a licensing deal. So just put it on our network for 3 months, but you still own it. I'm like, all right, we're in.
Joe also announced in July 2020 that he was planning on leaving LA to move to Texas.
Eventually, I'm going to move out.
Cool. Let's stop it there. I just lost a viewer. Come on. Yeah, moved to Texas, Spotify, Joe Rogan. All right, so man, I want to talk more about the UFC though. Um, he's not a fighter though, so like I don't really give. But I kind of stopped watching the UFC right when like affliction became a thing. Like people started wearing affliction, and then once you once these motherfuckers, and especially in high school, man, like it like once you like you wear affliction, then you have to watch UFC. And I was like, and then I saw a lot of posers start doing that. I was like, what? So, so you know what? Fuck UFC. And I stopped going to Buffalo Wild Wings and chugging fucking pints of beer with the homies. And I was like, all right, time to grow. Try to move on. Like, fuck UFC. I didn't come back to UFC maybe when like Muay Thai started to get popular. The grappling became a thing, you know, and I got tired of that. Even though I really respect the Gracie family and people that really mastered grappling. You know, I think grappling didn't really do its service, you know, because if they should have taught like cops how to grapple, you know, and it's too late now. It's never too late, but now everyone wants to fucking master grapple and Gracie. And the Rio Grande Valley must be like shitload of Gracie fucking gyms and shit. If you know what I'm talking about, grappling is like when UFC fighters like try to grapple each other and shove each other out so they can win the match and shit like that. It's whatever. I remember fucking this kid wanted to fight me in high school, and he was jealous because I was talking to his sister or some shit like that. And he grappled me, and I was just there. I was all right. So what's next, bro? What's next? It's gonna keep me here grappled. Um, I lost my train of thought. I was talking about high school and fucking shit. Spotify.
Out of California. How dare.
California. Okay, so yeah, and UFC before because they're about to go into the whole Spotify shit. So I like to talk about that, but just to get off the UFC for a minute. Yeah, man. So I started watching UFC. Fuck that shit. But I miss it, man. I really fucking throughout the past couple years becoming a fucking art fag. Like I I miss fucking Buffalo Wild Wings and chugging pipes with the homies and watching UFC and shit. So if anyone wants to do that, I'm like right here in Dallas, do it. Yeah, beer I've been drinking. You know, this is not even weed. This is about a cigar, very expensive cigar. Um, yeah, fucking I don't. All right, back to the video, motherfucker.
Yeah. Okay. No, not that much time. I think pretty soon.
Joe completed the move in August 2020 with pictures of the new Joe Rogan studio being posted on his Instagram. From a construction worker to a comedian to a Taekwondo champion to an actor to a UFC commentator to a reality show host to the most powerful interviewer of all time, as stated by Joe Peterson. Joe Rogan is a living and breathing example, proving that you can do whatever you want if you put your mind to it.
Joe goes on there 5 days a week. It's for a podcast.
You can, man. Look, for example, check out this ring, man. Copper ring. Okay. Nice green crystal right there. It's just straight quartz green. It's not. I don't think it's a specific crystal. Copper ring. I make them. I make a lot of copper jewelry. I had my nose, but I took it off.
That's the week. He works out 5 days a week. He writes. And the weekend he's always got something with his girls, you know. It's a non-stop world for Joe. When Joe does it one day, you guys do it.
A man with a set of skills so unique that he really couldn't be replaced by anyone. What Joe Rogan has accomplished is truly inspiring to many.
I've experienced a great benefit from this podcast. Yeah. I know other people benefit from it, but I've experienced a great benefit in that I've been exposed to a lot of different points of view, different personalities, different intellects, and different brilliant human beings.
That's what I want to experience, man. Be comfortable. Oh, fuck. All right, I guess the end of that. That's not the one I wanted to show y'all, man. I think. Man, fuck out.
I call it the wheel.
When you order carryout online from Domino's, you're no longer
That's not
just
cool.
a
You're not paying.
customer.
You're not paying for that. No, it has past 2020. Going into Joe Rogan Spotify, and and then we're gonna watch some clips of Joe Rogan controversy. Let's break that shit down. Joe Rogan controversy. One thing is they tried to cancel him last week, I think, and it was like him like last week or 2 weeks ago. Um, they had ran like through all his podcasts, someone that tried to do a hit job on him and get something dirty off him. And there's one episode where he's talking about like maybe the Django Unchained movie or one of the movie. I'm pretty sure it's Quentin Tarantino movie that just said the word nigger a lot, not nigger, nigger a lot. And he's like him and the guests were just saying it so much, you know. And then back then there wasn't that many people like listen to this podcast, but now like they want to go back and like burn people. I think that's very ridiculous in a sense, and also in context, because that would be me using it in context right now. I can't say because he got in trouble for saying the word nigger. And then so how this is beautiful is like 2 weeks, like a week before that happened. One of the first podcasts I did, this is probably number 3 that I've done in a 3-week to 1 month period. And my first podcast was me listening to my records. One of my records was a comedy record because I was gonna play music, but I was like, well, I want to talk about comedy, and I have this comedy record, and it's a Bicentennial Nigger by his name is escaping me right now. Richard Pryor. I have the record there, Bicentennial Nigger. And it was me listening to the whole record, 2 sides, talking about the album. It was a very genius album. And it's funny how all that shit works out. People try to cancel you just because you're talking in context and stuff like that. And I understand that what could be triggering. No one knows what the word trigger and triggering means more than me. You know, like I am responsible for people. Like I take me being a performance artist in the counterculture world. I have been an instrument, willfully used. I wasn't used for it because it's me understanding the art world. So to understand something, you have to surrender and fucking just dive into it. You know, you can't just like have one foot out of whatever you're trying to understand or experience, especially if it's an immersive one like art and a big city like Houston. So, and that I'm saying that the counterculture world, especially something that's crazy and experimental, avant-garde, and Dada, like performance art, is in itself like so strong that it does change culture and politics really quick, and it does have an army and I won't say army, like people individuals that fuel this mechanism as a whole is the people that we know that brought forth the Me Too movement and the cancel culture as we know it. And this does come from the BDSM culture. And because the BDSM culture in itself is divisive of habits and mechanisms and all these forms of when white people get bored. And you know, and then they know how to maintain order within that structures of chaos. So they've always had men checked in that BDSM world because that's where we get the word in the practice of consensual sex or consensual BDSM or consensual like choking and slapping the fuck out of someone. So what we're getting to this is that in itself, like the dawning of Me Too movement, like triggers like what creates a safe space, a safe society environment is being mindful of what triggers people, right? But that that's not how people learn to live. Like that's not how I learned to live and got to states of of awareness and consciousness that I am and I value. And then if I wouldn't have experienced and learned in the rate I wanted to learn, if I was just going to go around saying, hey, no, not right now. That is, I can't learn that much right now. It's going to be overstimulated, or I'm gonna get triggered, or it's too much, or it's too powerful. Or I'm not familiar with that. If you're not familiar with it, like it's any concepts of real life engagement of people devising all forms of survival mechanisms to get into this world and have their voice be heard and be a part of civilization. And what I'm talking about generally is like the avant of hipster culture as we know it. Because hipsters, and I don't want to waste your time here, man. Like, if I want to say profound shit just to keep you on check, like hipsters, as we know it, are people. They're culture vultures, and like not only that, but they still like I'm not like they the phenomenon of hipsters is people that move into the inner city to escape like the mundanity of their fucking suburban life, or they're outsiders from their own social circles or communities. They come to the inner cities and normally they've been broken individuals, or weak, or indifferent somehow, or handicapable. And they move into these highly urban areas in the inner city where rent is affordable. This is every fucking hip place in the history of hip places in every fucking big city. This is the phenomenon I'm describing here. And they learn from people of color, indigenous, black, otherwise, and they take from them their fucking things of how they survive, which is like how to play guitar the way they play it, and how they move their hips, and how they dress, and how they engage with people. I like that. And then and that's how we get Elvis Presley. So let's dive in deep to this controversy, Joe Rogan, until we hit critical mass to full circle. Joe Rogan, controversy right here. Top Mojo or whatever.
Of mine online as I get on stage. Google security check.
I said transgenders too much.
Fast to make sure that I'm safe on the internet. Make sure you're staying safe online.
Yes, bitch. Go, bitch. Girl, yes. Google that, bitch. Yes. Google.
Glass Industries is a world-class manufacturer.
What the fuck?
With a location here in Berlin. You're
Come on.
searching for the best people for.
Just don't think it's a good idea to take someone who's struggling with dementia and put him in one of the most stressful positions the world has ever known.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 Joe Rogan controversies.
So, buddy, Fauci hit you up.
Well, he didn't hit me up necessarily. He disagreed with me.
For this list, we'll be looking at the worst controversies that have hit popular comedian and podcast host Joe Rogan. What do you make of these controversies? Let us know in the comments below.
Comments below.
Number 10.
Number 10.
The Jack Dorsey interview. Millions of people tune into the Joe Rogan Experience because of its long-form conversational style. Rather than the light, frothy entertainment of late-night talk shows, Joe Rogan sits down and talks in depth with his...
I heard something profound earlier. Let me say it real quick. If you want to know every single controversial thing that the United States government and has been trying to suppress us from learning about, you would go to Facebook and see the list of shit that they've censored. Globalist agenda, bro.
guests, sometimes for 3+ hours. However, many people felt that Rogan was off his game while talking to Twitter co-founder Jack Dorsey.
He likes to insult people on Twitter. It's fun for him.
This episode generated a lot of controversy within the Rogan fan circle. Some thought he didn't grill Dorsey enough. Some thought the discussion was too corporate. And some even thought that Rogan had edited the podcast and was censoring YouTube comments.
So that is probably what's happening to all you folks that think your comments are getting deleted. No one's deleting.
Rogan eventually took to Instagram to defend himself. And Dorsey later appeared in a redemptive episode alongside citizen journalist Tim Pool.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
Number 9, moving to Spotify. For a long time, Spotify has been criticized for its terrible implementation of podcasting. This has become an even bigger problem now that Spotify is buying
nothing wrong with
numerous shows
podcasting.
and making them exclusive to their app. This is exactly what happened with the Joe Rogan Experience, and it made a lot of his fans angry.
There's thousands of podcasts anyway. I can only name 2.
Only on
So why is that a
Spotify.
problem?
The show
Because I
used to
haven't
be on
looked it up.
YouTube, and each episode generated millions of views. But then it was announced that Rogan was moving exclusively to Spotify in a deal reportedly worth a staggering $100 million. Many were outraged, and some suspect that Rogan lost a lot of influence and popularity following the move. Of course, that's hard to judge conclusively because Spotify does not release their listening numbers.
I was like, what have I done?
Oh, can't.
Let the gasoline.
Oh, let's talk real quick about the. Is there a fucking mute button? Yeah, so the first one, Jack Dorsey, that's YouTube, right? Yeah, YouTube's a son of a bitch.
Smoking with Elon Musk. If someone wants to see the impact that the Joe Rogan Experience has on pop culture, one only needs to study
That's why I
the
like Elon Musk.
controversy.
He
appeared on Rogan
he
show
sucks
on
that
September
he's
6,
doing buying up all the
2018.
property in
The
Riverbend Valley
episode
and
understandably became
terraforming
a
it,
huge hit. During the episode,
but
Musk
he
Rogan
contract
cigar, which
has so much
supposedly
globally.
contained a mix of tobacco
Like
and cannabis.
no government's controlling him.
The image became a meme, but it also
Free
caused
agent.
a lot of public controversy
The
for
real
Musk.
Iron Man.
Tesla stock immediately plunged, although this could be due to the simultaneous departure of an important executive.
That didn't materialize. You gotta wonder, what is the board going to do?
The media also tore into Musk, with some even worrying about his public image and mental stability.
Because you just have a little, it's great.
Fine. Number 7, shared by Donald Trump. Rogan often came under fire during Trump's presidency. During the very public 2020 election, Rogan was criticized for saying that he'd rather vote for Trump than Biden, owing to Biden's age and what perceived as his mental state.
I can't vote for him. I can't vote for Trump. Dude, I'd rather vote for Trump than him.
But the real controversy occurred when Donald Trump himself got involved. Rogan criticized a potential Biden presidency, comparing him to a flickering flashlight in the dark woods.
Biden to me is like having a flashlight with a dying.
It's probably my criticism for him. You know, Trump is a weird gray area. I don't want to get into it, but at the same time, if they had us thinking about a lot during Trump's presidency, whether he's bad or not, or what the fuck's going on. Being the caliber of person he is and how much influence, I think people should shut the fuck up about politics and the president as far as like who you're gonna vote for or you're not gonna vote for. That's always been like covenant or in itself, you're trying to like not tell everyone who you vote for, but like as far as like the individual understands like, oh, I might influence our election, so maybe I should not lean a certain way. I understand how he felt. No one wanted to vote for Biden either, or fucking Trump. But it was just like a fluke. At that time, he didn't know that fucking Trump was going to win. No one knew.
Battery and going for a long hike in the woods. It is not going to work out.
And he shared the clip to his millions of followers.
We're watching
on
top
social
10
media.
controversial
This
thing about Joe
generated
Rogan.
even more interest in Rogan and his political stance.
What up,
And
Juan?
many assumed that he was endorsing the most controversial president of our time.
It makes no sense to me. Very, very confusing.
Number 6, misreporting the wildfires. Joe Rogan came under intense media scrutiny during the 2020 California wildfire season. During a September podcast with writer and political commentator Douglas Murray, Rogan shared a baseless conspiracy theory that claimed left-wing people had started the fires and had been arrested for doing so.
They've arrested left-wing people for.
Interject real quick. So, way back. If you go way back, I'm making fun of podcasts. Back then, fucking Native Americans used to understand the importance of wildfires, and they used to maintain a certain balance and order of creating bushfires. And that itself, I've been doing that here too, like just to the ash enriches the soil too. Like it's an interesting thing to control bushfires and then have that work into gardening and stuff like that. They like because of like the genocide of Native Americans, they didn't do bushfires anymore, and also fucking forest reservations. Like they don't allow people to like intervene or analyze like what can be prevented for forest fires. So there's like that's my whole interjection of that. You know, like there's a lot of controversy of why these fires started in the first place. Yes, and there's a lot of preventive measures we can do to stop that. You know, but
Lighting these forest fires.
This conspiracy theory became so widespread that the FBI was forced to get involved, and they essentially told the public to stop spreading nonsense. This was a rare instance in which Rogan publicly acknowledged the controversy and apologized. He admitted that he didn't look into the claim before stating it and apologized for spreading political misinformation. Number 5, hosting Alex Jones.
Alex Jones.
The thing about the Joe Rogan experience is that it welcomes everyone, even those who have been publicly ostracized. Rogan has often come under fire for hosting alt-right figures on his show, including Milo Yiannopoulos and Owen Benjamin. But his most controversial guest has arguably been InfoWars founder Alex Jones.
Not worried about you. Alex Jones. This is the most anticipated thing I ever did.
Jones has been banned from virtually every social media platform, but he appeared on Rogan's show in October 2020. Critics argued that Jones shouldn't have been given a public platform to spread his controversial views, especially one as popular as Joe Rogan.
This is why people get banned.
Look, I understand the full extent of why Alex Jones is controversial and why he was made example of. You know, like, and when it's obvious, when people are made example of, you should like come out and give them some leeway of like understanding. You know, because I know the complexities of like different levels of how people in government and even like local police make an example out of people, and then they really fuck up their lives to do that too. Like it's like, oh, we're gonna make an example out of you, even in work too. Like fuck. And that's just simple. Like, and then it's affected my life too, because like I remember at the height of where he got controversial with the Sandy Hook school shootings. And I knew where all this shit was going, and the first wave of controversy I made of myself as an artist, and what I was construing of what was art, it was I was making fake news and putting it out there, fake like a lot of people just screenshot fucking news articles these days. I knew that I was going to get to this critical mass of people just screenshotting news articles, and we're just sharing fucking news article titles, and that's the news, right? And like what, like, and then it's like we got to this point where like we really need to understand like how we share news and how we virtual signal. So I started manipulating numbers of death counts, and I started doing that when there was a shooting outside of Houston at a school, and I posted in different news forums, and then different pages I was help managing, and I'll even get local newscasters and their faces on their coverage and their Twitter accounts and what they would say, and change the numbers on their posts. And I would like get a Twitter screenshot of a local politician and change what they said. So people like get really mad. It's like, oh, what? Why are you doing this? Like, what the fuck? And now there's fake news everywhere. That was before Donald Trump, man. That was fucking crazy. But you know, I was addressing something too, man. I was the catharsis of art of like, it's like, what the fuck, man? Like, that was a creative endeavor I experienced myself because I was getting burned out of the cognitive dissonance of what is like real statistics, real news, what's the meaning of mass shootings and like what's that word to describe crisis actors and shit like that. And that really, because I mean, Alex Jones did learn from that right away. He redacted it right away too. But just like the Joe Rogan and everyone else, is that they did a lot of research of they're vulnerable. People like us are vulnerable because we have visibility. And people that have straight visibility should people should consider the amount of visibility we have. I don't block any of my accounts. I don't censor none of the activities I do. I wait for the fucking pay attention to this. For the past 6 art shows, I don't even know why I said 6. Like a lot of art shows that I've had in the past, and it's going on. It's developing into a pattern. The cops do show up, and they try to stick me with anything they try to stick me with, man. And they don't know where this comes from. Do-gooder. I'm also like playing a role of confusion. So I like there's a lot of cops that want to be a bad detective. So I understand that there a lot of people, especially ones in Rio Grande Valley, are watching me, man. Just fucking crazy, man. And I have to do it because I experienced a lot of trauma, man, in the past 2 years of all types of trauma. When people say trauma, and they automatically think bad things of, but I'm talking about complex things of like just being a do-gooder and trying to awaken people and art shows and like facing like all types of people and forces that want to go against that. Let's go back to the video.
We better ban it right now.
The episode even resulted in some alleged internal pushback from Spotify employees who were angered over Jones's appearance on their platform.
People that decided that maybe you didn't see the other 2 podcasts.
Number 4, using ethnic slurs. The beginning of 2022 was a tough time for Mr. Rogan.
That is crazy.
Among other controversies that will be addressed shortly, Rogan was also targeted by a montage of him saying the N-word. The 30-second long montage contained dozens of utterances of the N-word. The tweet was liked, shared, and retweeted by
all of them in
thousands
context, by the way. Not justifying it,
in
but
early February,
to say.
singer India Ari reposted the clip compilation to her social media. Rogan responded with an apology video.
He shouldn't
clarifying
apologize.
how the snippets
Everyone
were
agrees.
taken out of context, and that he's since changed his position on who could and couldn't say the word.
Taken out of context. It looks terrible, but it looks terrible even in context.
Dozens of his podcast episodes were subsequently removed from the audio streaming site.
Fucking ads. That context. One thing I want to talk about Joe Rogan, we'll cover this, is that all the stuff that he says like crazy, weird. Isn't that weird? But that's crazy, right? That's crazy. But if you think about it, it's crazy. This is its own rhetoric of try or a divisive mechanism to try to get more information off the person he's interviewing or their perspective, or try to set some light and truth of what they perceive of their opinion on the subject. And it's such an easy mechanism to do. It's just like during conversation, I've seen a lot of people do it now because it's infectious. You use these trendy words. It's like, yeah, but it's weird, right? So it's weird. Like, well, you can elaborate a little bit. Like sometimes it's easy to just call shit weird. If you were to elaborate, you get censored more. If you think about it, I could have skipped it.
Number 3, the Robert W. Malone episode. In late December 2021, Joe Rogan hosted physician and biochemist Robert W. Malone on his podcast. While Malone is a pioneer of mRNA technology, his misinformed opinions on the COVID vaccine have generated tons of controversy within the medical community.
They removed you for not going along with whatever the tech narrative is.
Malone has been banned from Twitter, and his opinions have been deemed both dangerous and incorrect by fellow medical professionals. Malone's appearance controversy, as did the things the virologist said, like comparing the response to COVID to Nazi Germany. According to many, Malone's appearance in the show was incredibly harmful, as it amplified his misinformed voice to millions of susceptible listeners.
I brought you up to someone, and he goes, "Oh, that guy's crazy." I go, "How so?"
Number 2, his views on trans fighters. For those who are unaware, Joe Rogan is also a color commentator for the UFC. In the early 2010s, Fallon Fox became the first openly transgender athlete to fight in MMA. Rogan did not approve of her fighting cisgender women owing to her build. On an episode of his podcast, Rogan referenced Fox's bone structure, among other things. He also argued that she had an unfair physical advantage.
A lot of these controversies are very simple. If you drew a line in the sand of where you stand politically and where you want to see this world evolve into, you would understand that the complexity of and rate in which systemic racism has thrived and has permeated so vast in sports. So instead of canceling the whole Joe Rogan controversy with the transgender women that want to play sports, fucking cancel sports as a whole. All the sports suck. Cancel sports. All sports. Just make new sports. Let's get the computers and fucking start fighting fucking robots and shit. I'll fight a fucking robot. Fight it. I'm ready to fight a robot, dude. I'm like, I'm fucking connected, dude, to a mechanism I created. I'm like basically bionic right now. I got a Bluetooth speaker and a vibrating device. You can't see it's inside my clothes, but it vibrates every time I slouch or I'm not, my back's not aligned. That's why my posture is fucking gilded in gold right now, motherfucker. Anyway, share this fucking podcast, god damn it. Share it. Well, I never yelled, man. It's starting to like level out because I yelled. Anyway. Yeah, share the fucking podcast. Don't you know I'm fucking deplatformed, censored, very controversial artist? I should start that fucking the podcast like that. Hey, by the way, I'm very controversial artist, deplatformed a la verga. That's a good.
Against the cisgender women she was fighting.
We're built different, and it's just a fact.
Fox and various employees of Spotify have since asked that Rogan's transphobic content be removed. Rogan has since clarified his stance on trans fighters, arguing that they should be allowed so long as their opponents are aware of who they're fighting.
If you choose to fight her and you're a woman and you know that she's a trans woman, I'm totally fine with that.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring
Don't
the bell
don't
to get
subscribe to
notified
the
about
channel.
our
They
latest
suck.
videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional
Just because I'm
videos
playing these
or
videos
all
doesn't mean I agree with
If you're
this
on your
fucking
phone,
channel.
Make sure you go into your settings
It's
and
more
switch on
like what I
notifications.
want, my opinion.
Number one,
Number one.
COVID-19 misinformation. Since the outbreak of COVID-19, Rogan has been criticized for his views on the response and the vaccine.
I said, I don't think that if you're a young, healthy person, that you need it.
There was the whole ivermectin thing, where he falsely claimed the drug was a treatment for COVID.
Obviously, I'm not a doctor. It says ivermectin was found to be a blocker of viral replicase.
He has also argued against getting the vaccine, despite claiming that he is not anti-vax. It has all proven too much for some. In January 2022, hundreds of scientists and healthcare workers wrote an open letter to Spotify, asking them to curb the blatant misinformation found in the Joe Rogan Experience. According to them, the host is a menace to public health. Furthermore, musicians Neil Young, Joni Mitchell, and several more have asked that their music be removed from Spotify in protest of Rogan's misinformation.
Me la pela Neil Young a la verga, bro. Me la pela pinche Joni Mitchell a la verga, bro. Anyway, so what can I get from that? You know, like if you were to sum up, if there was like a list of 20 or 30 or 40, go way back, right? Of like the controversial shit that you said, and then formulate a pattern or structure of like what he's facing, and what is the common push behind whatever force is trying to censor this individual here. And so you got the COVID thing. You got Alex Jones with the whole like, okay, I'm defending this guy because he's more louder and saying more crazier shit than me, and he's getting that deplatformed. And a lot of what Joe Rogan was pointing out with the whole presence of Alex Jones is that, hey, I'm not just defending my friend Alex Jones, I'm defending this fellow podcaster, this person that goes online and is experiencing systematic like oppression of free speech and censorship. So, you know, it's okay. So that's Joe Rogan, right? So that's and then the other thing was what was it? The COVID vaccine. Okay, so the shots and you know, that's baby girls. No, that's not baby girls. I'm masquerading over Williams. That's why I'm. To say where I'm about to go is the reason why I'm mad. That's not masquerading. Son of a bitch. I forgot all the controversial shit.
just don't think it's a good.
Okay, so the first one was the Trump thing. The first
$100 million.
controversy with Trump.
Many were outraged, and some suspect that Rogan lost a lot of influence and popularity following the move. Of course, that's
The
hard to
move to
judge
Austin?
conclusively because Spotify does not release their list.
Spotify. Okay, what was this fucking thing? Intellectual doctrine.
But the real controversy.
Was a Trump thing.
It's nonsense.
Number 5, posting out.
Okay.
Among other controversies that will be addressed shortly, Rogan was also targeted by.
All right. See, if one of those were to be top 10 controversial things that Joe Rogan has done, one of those were to be molesting kids, and yeah, man, write them off. Motherfucker molested kids, that's a real fucking problem. Sexually assaulted or fucking grabbed someone's titty or JJ, not there too. So like, what the fuck is really going on here, man? And it's not cool because this goes into the cancel cultural world, and like at the thing about the other thing about hive mind in the area came up with the rhetoric of that. I know, so it's very simple. Can't believe I'm here defending Joe Rogan, but it's not about Joe Rogan. It's about me. I'm doing this because of me. I'm vicariously talking about me through the lens of Joe Rogan, because that's what art works. Therapy, like the activism. Like a lot of times going to protests, like it's like, holy shit, we're just here because we're in pain and we just want to yell and find solidarity in this, and like in this pain body. Well, it's moving to California, Spotify, Alex Jones, fucking free speech. Elon Musk had nothing to do with him. He just passed the fucking blunt to Elon Musk. Very ridiculous. But at the end of the day, it might be okay. So we can redact it to why he moved to California to Texas. Just like all the other fucking people that are moving from California to Texas. And who is he trying to escape from there? What type of oppression? And I would say it's the new politics. These paradigms are changing. Like it's not going to be Democrat, Republican anymore. That's the one thing I was thinking about today. Like I think the new thing would be conservatives versus technocrats. I think that's what we're seeing here. And the new conservatives are probably Joe Rogan, in a sense. He's not really conserving anything because he's very visible. But Texas as a whole is a conservative. Because if you're moving here, you're escaping persecution from all the other fucked up states. So you're trying to conserve your own. And then the other thing is fucking technocrats, which is the NATO, which is the New World Order, which is why we're in fucking Ukraine. Whispering in the fucking ear to like say, hey, fuck Russia, like we should retaliate, like that bully. The real bully sometimes is the person that whispers in the other person's ear, and that's how the CIA works. Fucking same thing that they did to Ukraine is what they did to America, and destabilizing all the other fucking countries through through America, man. Like and we have a lot to blame here in America for what's going on over there right now. And it's not Russia's fault. It's not Ukraine's fault. We're starting this fucking mess. It's like how we start every fucking mess. And if you don't agree with me about the technocracy order, then why is Taiwan the fucking common factor of all this shit? Like Biden's latest speech is like, no, don't worry, we're gonna be good because like we're gonna start building these computer chips here in America, not Taiwan. That's a very interesting point to bring up. It's like who really hates Joe Rogan, you know? I know we should end it there. One thing I want to talk about Joe Rogan about is the future of Joe Rogan, and that is he's going to be opening up a comedy venue in Austin, and just like where this conversation is going is that we need to celebrate our agency, our dominion of land over our individual sovereign self on this land. And people, it's a grand exodus. And what I preach and what I tell people to give them some insight of what the whole immigration situation is, that throughout history, mass migration of immigrants or mass migration of people is nothing new. We've been experiencing since the beginning: calamity, war, famine, natural disasters, moving and shaking. This is how we get forward to the new world, not through technocracy. Technocracy is not going to launch us to the new world that we want to live in. It's what's going to launch us is respecting the natural order of mass migration, and where people are accepted, welcome, where they can live abundantly and use the resources that are at their hands and the land that are under their feet, not to be put in cages or they have to wait in borders to get some form of humanity or fucking servitude of starting a new life. And we grow and learn through mixing within other cultures, you know, and that's how we evolve. That's how we, and that's the human way. You know, if you really want to blow your fucking mind, we owe it to comets coming to this earth, impregnating us with other alien forms of life or water that um, has been these comets are pieces of the earth, pieces of frozen water that have been launched out of the earth from other asteroid or calamities and burst into the world, and they're coming back and they have life in them. And water is precious in the sense of this molecular structure of memory to the pathogens or bacteria or mushrooms, fungal life that live and can survive the vacuum of space, or frozen in time, like the fucking icebergs that are melting in Alaska right now. And now we're gonna have all these transmutation and symbiosis of life, just consuming and eating each other, and thriving, and the new evolution, and slowly the food that we eat is gonna eat that, and then we're gonna eat that food, and we are gonna progress in that nature. But it's a slow process. We should be very patient with it. The people who are not patient, the people who are actually fighting and killing us as a whole, but Joe Rogan's enemy is my enemy. It's the fucking people who want to make GMO food and create a false spin, a false bliss of fucking life inside a simple seed. It needs a natural spin. It needs the photosynthesis of the sun. The corona of the sun is going to be blessing us in this grand testament. We shouldn't be hiding from the sun. We shouldn't be quarantining in these little boxes. We should be out there and saying, "Hey, sun, hey, you want to crown me with something? I'll be your king."